Good morning. It is Super Bowl Sunday, the 2nd of February, Groundhog Day. And today the groundhog did not see a shadow, so we are going to get an early spring. Put it on the board. I hope so, man. Somebody posted a graphic here in Pittsburgh. There has not been one sunny day the entire year yet. Today, still overcast, although it looks bright. Based on the background, it's not. It's just the exposure of this camera. So thanks for joining me. If you're watching it live, I appreciate you joining me. If you are watching the recording, hi, that's okay too. So we are Super Bowl Sunday. This morning you're catching me fresh from the gym, a little worn out, but last night had a terrible night's sleep. I don't know. I think I might have to go get allergy tested. I might be allergic to tomatoes, which would really be bad. But I ate incredibly healthy yesterday because I knew today was going to be kind of an unhealthy day. Not terrible, but not as good as I have been. So we ate, last night we had for dinner, we had spaghetti squash with sauce, and I had heartburn all night. I was up at 4 in the morning and just could not get back to sleep. Yeah, kind of a rough morning in that regard, but I did go back to bed, get a little extra sleep, but got up today, got to the gym, got that out. I thought because there was some snow on the ground that it might discourage people from showing up, but not the case. Today was actually a pretty busy day for a Sunday. Back here, and my wife was downstairs making the kids bacon and egg sandwiches, and I've not eaten yet today. And I'm telling you, I'm dying right now because I can smell the bacon up here. And I'm just going to sip my coffee and go have breakfast after we're done here. So today's topic is going to be how to deal with other people as we're going through our growth and change. This is an incredibly hard topic because... we've made relationships based on who we have been. And, I went through this, and I talk about it quite a bit because it's, I think, the hardest part of any kind of personal growth is, we've built a lifetime based on, what we've already done, and we've attracted relationships based on who we are. And we've trained people how to interact with us. I firmly believe that healthy people identify other healthy people through some sort of radar. You subconsciously can identify actions and patterns, behaviors, ways, manners of speaking. You can identify unhealthy people and you can identify healthy people. And I think in my own experience, while I do have some really good relationships over the past 10, 15 years, I think a lot of my relationships were based on unhealthy people seeing me going, yeah, I can get along with that person because he's just as unhealthy as I am, or more or less, whatever. And I think that healthy people see, an unhealthy person and say, I'm going to keep my distance. And kind of working through that, and there's different comfort levels there. It's a rough thing to work through, especially when, everybody has blind spots. Everybody, has a perspective where they think they're correct. And, they think that the other people need to change and all this other stuff. And so then we all have blind spots where we don't understand what we are doing wrong. And even now, I'll look back at myself in a couple of years and go, man, yeah, I had no idea I was doing that or behaving that way or treating people that way. And, I'll gain some perspective. But it only happens through growth and through constantly analyzing, our energy and awareness and how we behave and how we're creating interactions with other people. Good morning, Kathy. Good morning, Bev. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to kind of walk through this. And what prompted this specific discussion was because somebody in the group a few days ago posted that they're struggling with having a bad attitude because there's a person that keeps dumping things on their plate at work. And it's because the other person is disorganized and disrespectful of our group members' time. And so, how do you deal with that? It's hard. It's incredibly hard. And through the group discussion, I mean, there are 31 comments here. I love what everybody has to say. I think that everybody's answer was just about spot on. And it's funny because I could see handling this situation with any of these responses. And I think we just need to realize that there's no one response that's going to work for each individual person in each situation. So in some cases, and I'll go back to my experience, in some cases I've had to completely remove myself from a situation. In other cases, especially if I wanted to maintain a relationship with somebody, and even in my own marriage, right, I've had to decide to be more patient. I've had to decide to set boundaries, and try to change the conversation, change the interaction, retrain a person how to deal with me. And it's upsetting to the other person sometimes, especially again in a marriage. It's upsetting because we've built a relationship, and this goes for work also. We've built relationships based on what we previously found acceptable, and the more we learn, the more we realize this isn't okay. We need to pull back a little bit and redefine what that relationship is. And so the other person's going to go, well, wait a minute, I signed up for this relationship the way it was. I didn't sign up for this new crap. And so we have to be kind of empathetic and understand that it's going to be a change they didn't ask for. And we need to kind of be gentle with that. And, my wife and I have kind of had this dance over the years where, we've changed different areas in our lives and it's been different for each other. And we've kind of had to allow ourselves to adjust. And it's happened at work too. It happened with clients of mine. It's happened with coworkers where, somebody is just used to the way you are and you have to adjust that, right? You just have to go hey, I'm making a change. Sometimes you have to explain it, especially if it's a boss. You have to say, look, I realize I'm deficient in these areas, or that I've handled things a certain way. I feel I need to change, and I would appreciate your support in helping me do this. And this is how you can help me. I mean, that's an effective conversation. It's not an easy conversation to have, especially because many times, if we get into these unbalanced relationships, we learn to handle things passive aggressively. We are not direct because of just the nature of the relationship. And if you're somebody, like in this case, who other people can dump their things on and you go, okay, I'll put my own stuff off and do the things that you asked me to do. I've been there. I still am that person in a way, right? And over time it builds up resentment and we get passive aggressive about how we handle things. Instead of saying, I'd love to do that, I can't, and this is the reason. Right? That's so direct. And I appreciate when people are direct like that because then I know where the limits are. But it's hard when somebody gets direct after days, years of letting you do things a certain way. You're like, wait a minute, this relationship is different now. I didn't sign up for this, right? So when somebody, in my own experience, when somebody has let me be a certain way, and then they come and decide to be assertive, it almost feels like a betrayal. It almost feels like, well, this is BS. Now you're telling me that the way I'm behaving is wrong because you decided to make a change. So you can kind of see that when you make that change, that's what the reaction would be. The reaction is going to be, no, this isn't right. Now, how can I be wrong because of the way that, you're changing your life? It's a hard thing to handle. So, in this person's situation, there are many different ways to deal with it. And you just kind of have to feel it out and decide how much you want to put up with. We'll get there in a minute. Let me check out the comments because I've seen some people commenting here. Good afternoon. I know we're saying good morning, but it's actually good afternoon for me. Looking forward to getting some ideas for work. We have people who feel others are dumping on them, and those people feel the same way about them too. Yeah, and it's hard. Organizations, especially work cultures, it's incredibly hard for one big reason. it starts at the top and filters its way down the culture of that organization. And if management or ownership is unhealthy, passive aggressive, don't handle situations properly, needy, whatever it might be, an organization will expel good people. Like, they'll just put them off. Good people either won't join, or once they realize they're in a bad situation, will go leave for greener pastures. And the people that find a dysfunctional organization okay or comfortable or normal, they'll stay there and perpetuate that dysfunction. And I've seen it, we've talked about it in the past, as an IT vendor, some of our clients were that way, and we get to observe it, from an outside perspective. It's, I'm looking at it and I'm watching, like, they might have a superstar salesperson or a superstar customer service person or a superstar manager. And that manager or salesperson gets increasingly frustrated because they're not, like, they have good ideas, they're putting in effort, but then they see people that aren't putting in effort or are toxic, and they see those people progressing or even being treated the same. And so then the good person, seeing no avenue for personal improvement or growth in the company, goes to find growth somewhere else. And so when you have a company where there's this toxic relationship, I mean, if it's hard to change one person's life, if it's hard enough to change your own life, I can imagine it seeming almost impossible to change an entire organization's culture. I mean, you really have to start, like, it's either going to be a really slow change, or it's going to be an abrupt one where you sort of clean house and bring in fresh management, fresh people. But it's really, really hard. And there's a lot of books out there that I've read that say, like, once a company starts to decline, like, there's a point where it just never comes back. It can't. You won't ever attract enough good talent. It's just like, you can't change that downward spiral once you get to a certain point. So the goal would be to never get to that point. But it's hard. It's very hard. In my own experience, over the past years, I've had to handle different people different ways. So you sort of have to decide, who are the good people in my life that I want to keep. That the relationship means a lot to me, and through growth will mean even more. My marriage would fall under that category, right? As frustrating as it's been, and as bad as it's been at points in the past, being here was an important part of me and where I saw myself in the future. So, dealing with that relationship was an incredibly big deal for me, and navigating that was a big deal, is still a big deal. But then there's other relationships, even familial relationships, right? I mean, like, you guys know, if you've watched any of my videos, that I have a complicated relationship with my mother. That's a relationship that I've had to step away from, because I know that I don't have the ability to change it in a way that's okay for me, that doesn't damage me. So I've had to step away from that. I've had some friend relationships that have been the same way, where, I've had to back away from it and, let it kind of just kind of disappear, we're friendly, we still keep in touch once in a while. But, it's not like we're not hanging out constantly, going back to that, the 5 people that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Like, I can't be there all the time because it brings down my mentality, my mindset. It's not on the road of where I want to go. Doesn't mean it's closed off for good. It just means that right now I need to focus on other things, namely, my relationship with my wife and even you guys, right? So, that brings up the question, what about the relationships we can't get away from and maybe don't have the capability to change, right? So my wife and I together every day have this ability to impact each other daily, positively, daily, sometimes negatively, but for the most part positively. But you're walking into work and you have people that you see 8, 10 hours a day that go home into maybe a really crappy situation, that were not brought up the way that you were, that have no interest in improving themselves. So how do you walk into that relationship and navigate that on a daily basis? And I think it's very similar, although you might have to be a little more hard line with it. So if it's just a coworker, the goal would be to get away from them as much as possible in the office. There's a book out there called the AH, spelled out, it's actually the word, I'm just not going to say it right now, the AH Survival Guide. And that book, I actually had a hard time listening to it because it actually stressed me out. Listening to it actually like I was remembering old relationships, and it actually aggravated me, agitated me, and it would actually put me in a bad mood. So I had to take that book in pieces. But if you are currently in a situation, it's a very good book, the AH Survival Guide. And I can, I'll tell you right now who the author was, because I was just looking it up. Oh, I navigated away from it for a minute there. It is written by Robert Sutton. And so that book in particular talks about, there's research that like being, if you can at least, like if you're in a cubicle situation, if you can separate yourself by 10 feet, it actually has a positive impact on you. Like we're literally like, if you're right next to somebody that's a complete AH, if you can move away from them by 10 feet, you're improving your situation. They've done studies on this. So the more distance you can put yourself, in between yourself and this other person, the better. Limit your exposure is the big thing. Limit your exposure. Now, if you have somebody at work that's putting upon you, especially a boss, then it requires a little bit more nuance, right? Me personally, I think the way I would start that conversation is sitting down and trying not to get too emotionally involved with it, but sitting down and saying, look, John, I am right now trying to be the best employee I can for you. We've laid out priorities, or maybe you have to ask, like, what are going to be my priorities for the next month or for the next quarter, whatever. We've laid out these priorities, but I feel like I'm having a hard time because when I'm trying to finish the work that we've laid out, things keep getting put on my plate at the last moment, and it's hard for me to shift gears and adjust and do the things that we already decided were a priority for me. That conversation is not easy. And I'm saying it now because I'm not sitting in front of John, right? It's a hard conversation to have. I've had to have that conversation with people, and it's hard to navigate, especially when there's somebody like reacting and having emotions and looking at you like, what are you talking about? Or maybe not even angry, maybe hurt. Maybe they're hurt by what you're saying. And I think that in every one of these situations, we have to look at it as practice, right? We have to look at it like, okay, I'm going to have this conversation now. It's not going to be easy, but next time it'll be a little bit easier. And I think you also have to kind of maybe even devalue the situation or your current job and say like, look, this isn't my entire life. I need to have this conversation now because, look, my next career move or my next job needs to be healthier. So I need to practice all this crap right now, right? So you have to look at it any way you can to rationalize or justify or give purpose to this conversation that needs to happen. And so this conversation is, look, I understand, like, things come up. Maybe this person is disorganized. Maybe this person is really unhealthy and they've just made it to this position above you by sheer luck or knowing somebody or necessity because there was nobody else that could take it. Whatever it might be, you have to set those boundaries so that you can say, like, look, we know that this is my job. I know you want me to do this other stuff, and I would love to do it for you, but I can only put so much on my plate. Really unhealthy people are going to say tough crap and tell you to figure it out on your own and whatever. And that's a situation that you then realize, like, I'm not going to be able to change this as much as I would like to. And you either need to just, like, realize that it's going to suck no matter what. And there's nothing you can do to change it. So all you can do is change yourself, right? Educate yourself, maybe start looking for another job. Try to handle it the best way you can, and realize that no matter what you do, there's going to be hell to pay at some point, right? There's going to be a harsh reaction, an unhealthy reaction. And the only thing that you can do is do your stuff, right? And decide how you want to handle it. I've seen people using Define My Day just decide that they're going to show up at work and clock out when they need to. And they like that block of time that they're at work is just time, right? They're earning their paycheck. It's gone. And then all of their growth time happens before and after. So they like that. That's just a black hole in their day. And that's how they have to look at it. And that's okay, right? I mean, if that's what has to happen, that's what has to happen. But you don't want to live that forever. Maybe if you're close to retirement, you're going to deal with it because you've been dealing with it for 25 years and, whatever. Maybe, you do have a plan to get a job in a year or two and you're just going to suck it up. That's okay too. But, if you decide that you're going to try to change that situation at work, you have to allow that time to adjust. And realize that, like, if you have one particular person putting upon you, it's not going to be a quick change. It's not going to be like, hey, this is how I do things, and this is the new me now. People aren't going to say, well, no, because you've been Sally for the past 20 years or 10 years or 5 years. You're Sally. I'm going to treat you like Sally, right? I mean, there's research out there that said, like, we've trained people how to treat us. Victims even train people to treat them like victims. Now, I'm not blaming victims, but that's in psychology, like, that's like victims behave like victims, and predators identify that and realize that this is a person I can victimize. And so they're attracted to each other in a way because victims are sort of comfortable in that situation. That's what they're used to being treated like. So it's shared for both. And the same thing happens at work. Like, if somebody's dumping on you and you've been dealing with it because that's what you do, then that, like, changing that situation, the person is going to be angry at you. The person is going to be upset with you. The person might even be hurt because, they understand that this is the way things have been. Now you're telling me I'm wrong, right? So, I would have the conversation first, understanding that they're probably not going to like it, but have that conversation first where you say, my goal is this. In order for me to do that and be of more value to you and to the company, then, if we could plan out our days or our weeks a little bit better, I would appreciate that. It would help me out a lot. Realizing that there's going to be growth between the two of you, right? Like, so, there's going to be times where it's just all hell breaks loose and yep, okay, we're going to have to start over tomorrow. But then there's going to be other times where there's just a little bit of growth. And I think that, that there's going to be a back and forth. And then there's, if it works out ideally, in 2 or 3 years, things are better, right? Now, if, and there's ways to handle it. I think that there's, you can reinforce it, as things happen. And, hey, John, I know you really want to get this done, but let me ask you, I'm working on this right now, and this thing you're telling me I need to do now, which one's more important to you? Okay, this emergency thing, that's fine. I can handle that as long as you understand that this other thing is going to be, have to go off, or, like, whatever. Well, can't you stay later? No, I'm sorry, I can't stay later. I got to go home and my daughter has a recital, or I got to take care of my mom, or, whatever. Like, I think that being assertive like that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, but, there are certain people that really appreciate that. And, if you can practice, being assertive without being passive aggressive, and if you can practice, like, explaining your point of view and understanding that somebody else has a completely different point of view that you don't have to agree with, and you don't even have to sympathize with if it's something really wrong, like, it's just that nuance. And if you practice that, I think you're practicing it for future, more healthy relationships. And then sometimes you just have to suck it up, right? Sometimes you just, John's going to be a jerk and he's going to say, no, tough shit. Sorry. Tough. You got to do this. It's your job. Do it. I don't care what you have to say about it. And you then have to decide, am I going to stay here and put up with this? Or am I going to start looking for another job? How am I going to deal with it? Am I just going to say, whatever John wants to do, then, the whatever else we decided we were going to do that was important doesn't get done and whatever. But you got to set your boundaries. I'm not staying late. I'm not going to stress out about this over the weekend. I'm not going to answer my phone at 11 o'clock at night when John decides, whatever needs to happen. You have to put all of this as you're going through this whole process and you're realizing what your values and your priorities in life are. There might be some pain for you. There might be some financial pain. There might be stress in that you're handling a situation in a new way. But, in the end, the path that you're on, you have to see that path. You have to understand that the reason I'm going through this, the reason I'm doing this is to get better, to get more healthy myself, and to have healthier relationships and a healthier job situation in the future. And this happens even in like organizations. I coached football last year for my kid, and I mainly did it. I was motivated to do it because I saw other coaches that potentially were throwing their hat in the ring that I saw as people that dangerous might be a strong word, but I didn't think that it was good for the kids to have somebody like this coaching them. So I threw my hat in the ring. And it was a hard situation the entire year. And at the end I was damaged by it, I would say, and exhausted by it because, there was little support from the president of the organization. There was, not a lot of support from the coaches around me. In fact, one of the coaches from the other teams came to me after the season was over and was like, "Hey, you coming back?" And I said, "I don't know, man." He's like, I feel for you. He's like, you had wasn't a single time that I saw anybody going along with what you said. Everybody wanted to be the head coach. Everybody else had an opinion and nobody did what you asked. I was like, geez, at least somebody else saw it. Like that validation felt really good. But, it was like the entire time, it was an incredibly dysfunctional organization. And while I thought I could have a positive impact on it, I realized I lived through the whole experience of, why good people or why people that want to affect a positive change leave a dysfunctional organization, because it's very hard to have a positive influence on a bad organization. And so I went through the season and now have to decide if I'm going to come back next year. Now there's different people there this year. And am I going to come back? I don't know. But I think that looking back on it, how I would change things is I would have set stronger boundaries. I would have said no more often. I tried to be incredibly empathetic. I tried to give everybody a say. I tried to be more understanding, and especially in that environment, which is more of a, peacocking environment. You kind of just have to say no and have to stand your ground firmly. And then other people might respect that and back off a little bit. And sometimes, I don't want to be oppressive, but in that situation, I might have needed to be. But I learned from it, right? I learned from that situation the same that you're going to learn from your situation. But what you don't want to do is continue an unhealthy situation as you're going forward. You don't want, the worst thing you could do is just maintain the situation as it is and not try to figure out where you can make a positive change. If you do that, you're just doomed to be in the situation as it is now. One of the pieces of this, and I mentioned blind spots earlier, one of the pieces of this is understanding your role in it. Like victims training predators to treat them like a victim, right? There are interactions we have on a daily basis, and whether it's, it could be defensiveness, it could be reactivity, it could be some we have behaviors that let other people know how we are going to interact with them and how they can interact with us. And that's where educating yourself and understanding where you're coming from, why you react to certain things a certain way, why you feel the need to do something, why you feel the need to, whether like judge other people or criticize other people or take on too much work from somebody else. If you take time to understand where you're coming from, you can understand your reactions a little bit better and understand why you're interacting with somebody. But what I've found is that I have created many relationships based on my need to feel valued. So I, especially in work relationships, wanted to come in and do more, but the client, would keep taking more and then not give credit for the more that we did. And it turned into a really unbalanced relationship. And then they came to expect that we would just do everything that they ever asked us to do. And so it wore us out as a company. It wore us out. And it just creates this toxic relationship. Now I have to identify what I did to create that. And the biggest thing for me in the very beginning was boundaries. Hey, Nick, can you guys do this for us? I'd love to. We do this for you now. For us to do that, well, either we can't, or it would cost you this amount of money. And that's how a business relationship works, right? Or hey, even if maybe we'll do it this one time, understand that if we have to continue, we have to set up a new agreement or whatever it might be. A really healthy company, a real profitable company, a company that values the time of their employees, a company that values the mentality of their employees, would set proper boundaries in the very beginning. Because in the end, if you take on too much work that's, not included in whatever you're charging this person, then the employees are the ones that suffer because they have to keep running around doing more work and they're not getting paid anymore. And it creates this reactive culture in the environment, in the company. But I created that. Why did I create that? Because I had a personal need to feel even more valuable to our customers, right? So my entire company in the very beginning was built off of my personal blind spots and my personal need to be valued. And that's, for me to learn that, it took a long time. And that's where, reading comes into play and understanding yourself and your own motivations. And so as you're interacting with people at work, why did you feel that you needed to take on everything this person was ever dumping on you? Why do you need to put out somebody else's fires? Now, I've seen, like, Brendan Burchard is somebody that I followed for a long time, and he actually has an email where if somebody asks him to do something, he has like a script that he puts out there. He's like, I appreciate that you have this urgent need to get this done. However, my schedule has been planned out for months ahead of time, and I can't respond to your. When I read this email, and you could probably Google it and find it. When I read this email, I thought, whoa, I can't write that. I can't tell somebody that. I would actually like to send him an email and see if he could send me that back, like if he really does it, because even now I don't think I could do that. I would probably try to soften it more and say, look, I understand this is important to you. Unfortunately, I have things on my plate right now and I can't do this for you. I still have a hard time doing it now. People ask me to do things that are outside of what we do in my other business, and I still have a hard time saying no. It's not an easy thing to do, but we need to. We need to understand why we have a hard time saying no, because, we weren't trained to do it in the first place. We were, there's that mentality that, we just work harder. We do more. We're a good employee. We're a good company. We help out our customers. Whatever you want them to do, whatever they want you to do, we just do it. But that's not healthy. Right? It's not healthy. You can't do everything for everybody. You can't just keep putting yourself out there and operating outside of what's healthy for you. The way you figure that out is figuring out what is healthy for you. Where do you want to go? What's your purpose? What drains you? What gives you energy? And the more you figure that out, the more you develop your own internal purpose, the more confident you are in telling other people no, or asking, how can we work this out in a better way that's good for the two of us? And when you get to that point, things really start to change for you. And this works in a lot of relationships. I mean, we talked about bosses. I talked about significant others. And we can hit significant others real quick here a little bit more. That's kind of like, where you have to watch somebody, or they have to watch you even do things that they know aren't healthy, right? You almost have to give them space to kind of grow, and they have to give you space to grow and change. But there's supposed to be some security there where that you're still going to be there for each other. And that's really hard in these types of things. Like if you're growing, and I've seen posts in the past where someone would say, I had my day planned out and then my husband dumped this on me. Or my wife, isn't doing this, or isn't holding up her end of the bargain with this. And so now I'm left trying to handle all this stuff. I'm being vague intentionally because I don't want to out anybody. But, if I think that's a conversation that you have to continue to have and reinforce consistently and constantly. You have to, especially in a marriage or any type of relationship like this, you have to always say every day, this is what I need you to do for me, or this is what I would appreciate you doing for me. And then when they do it, reward them with like a thank you, or like that was really nice. Like show the appreciation. That's actually an area that I've needed to work on, because I don't so much need appreciation myself, and that's how I talk. Like I don't need anybody to say to me thank you. But at the same time, I just need like an equal like partnership thing, right? And it's hard. Like you have to have that communication. You have to communicate the way the other person communicates too. And so, what I've found, and even what I've read, like the Jordan Peterson's book, in one of the chapters, he talks about this. With raising kids, every time they do something good, you have to tell them that's good. And every time they do something that's not good, you have to tell them that's not good. And sometimes you have to tell them why. And in an adult relationship, it's even more so that way. Yeah, thank you for doing that for me. I really appreciate it. That means a lot to me. Like consistently, all the time. And then when they do something that you don't like, when something's bothering you, like when your husband comes home and dumps something on you, you say, look, babe, I'll handle that for you. I we can do that. But, I'm really trying hard to do this for myself right now because it's good for the two of us. It's good for our relationship. It's healthy for me. So if next time this comes up, could you either handle it yourself or, like coordinate with me? Like that has to be handled really gently. And that's a hard thing for me because I'm the person that says, I'll do it. All right. And then I get worn out because I do too much. I operate outside of what's healthy for me. And then I get resentful and then I get passive aggressive. Right. And that's me. That's the thing that I'm working on. But, the effective way to handle it and the way that I've been learning to handle it myself is like, yeah, I can handle that. But listen, please, could you, next time, can we handle this differently? And then also, doing I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thank you. In fact, that happened today. I'm driving home from the gym and I knew I wouldn't have time to cook the kids breakfast. And she was in the kitchen cooking breakfast. And I would have been like, okay, that's cool. Like, and just walked away. Like, wouldn't have said anything. I just thought in my head, hey, that's cool. But instead, hey, babe, you read my mind. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You're really saving my morning. Right? Doesn't seem like a big deal. Like, to me, that's not even natural to say that. But to her, it was a big deal. Like, because she was thinking ahead, like, hey, I'm going to do this for us and, take care of this. I know Nick wanted to, but he's not going to have time. And so, but that's the change in the interactions that we've had in our relationship. And then we get into like caretaker responsibilities, right? I've seen a lot of people in the group that have elder care issues where, you have an adult you're taking care of, whether it's your mom or your dad. And I watched my mom do this, right? I mean, my mom did a lot, operated unhealthy for herself because she did too much, got resentful, and it became a toxic situation. And I see other people in this group that, you get incredibly worn out, because you might be staying up nights with somebody. You're constantly working, and then you're coming home, and then you're working at home because you're taking care of someone that needs your help. And while incredibly admirable, it can be so draining, and especially when you have outside forces, whether it's siblings or anybody. Like I watched my grandmother like badmouth my mom outside of the house to friends, and then like create this drama that then people would come back to my mom, or like the word would get around to my mom that the stuff was happening. And look, I don't, I have my own issues with my mom, but I also sympathize with the fact that like she was in a crappy situation for a long time. And like how do you handle stuff like that? It's incredibly hard. But I think you constantly, have to maybe like set boundaries, but then also be telling your story. When somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, this is what I heard from your mom," say like, "Well, that's not true at all. Not true at all." And you don't have to get defensive about it, but that's not, but there's always somebody, like there's always people from the outside are always looking at it and criticizing how you're handling things. But you have to have the sense of confidence that like I'm doing the best that I can, as long as you honestly are, and realize that other people aren't going to do the things you're doing. And so we have this like delicate situation, especially, where somebody, an elder can't take care of themselves and nobody else is going to be there to take care of them, but then they're all going to criticize how you're taking care of them. That's an awful situation. So, I think having good support, I think taking care of yourself through exercise, meditation, eating well, all the things we talk about constantly, but then also like maybe kind of distancing yourself, or creating some sort of buffer, having somebody to advocate for you too. You need to create a situation that's healthy for you. You can't drive yourself into the ground taking care of somebody else. So I wanted to hit that briefly because I know that's a situation that's common for a lot of people. But so that's kind of it for today. I know this is a hard situation. If anybody has questions, throw it up here, because I know we have a few people watching, and I want to make sure that we address it properly. I myself am in the situation now where I've gone through a couple of years of, where I've pulled away from certain relationships that I don't want anymore. I have relationships that I do want, but I had to pull away to just grow myself so that I can come back to the relationship in a healthy way. And then there's the relationships that I have to be in the entire time, and have to grow within that relationship. So, there's different ways of handling each thing. You just have to kind of identify how you're going to handle specific ones. And all the comments here, I mean, everybody has a great comment for this one person. Explain to the person why this is hurting you, or why you can't handle it. Reteach the person how to handle your situation. Respectfully, sometimes you just need to really do something for yourself, like, and be, a hardline advocate, kind of like the way I was talking about the football thing. Like, I just needed to like stand up and say like, no, this is not going to happen. That's not what I did. And it was not the right move. I needed to be stronger. And you can see why some people need to be like this, like hard butt kind of person, especially when dealing with other people that behave that way. So, you have to behave different ways with different people. Some people are, really hurting and are really disorganized and have a lot going on, and like keep pushing off to you because they see you as a person that can help them. Other people don't want to take responsibility and just want to put things on you because you're the person that they can beat up a little bit. And that's the person you kind of have to stand up to and be strong with. So the one person you have to be compassionate with, the other person you have to be strong with. And then there's like a bunch of stuff in between, right? There's somebody that's maybe both, so you have to kind of figure out with each person how to handle it. One person saying which one of these tasks is the highest priority. Absolutely. I think a response that some people get is all of it. You got to do all of it. Because they don't care. They don't have the ability to see what you're going through, to see your time, or understand that you have other things outside of the job. Um, Schedule a preemptive strike, right? Like even like if you know something's coming down the line, maybe then you go into that person and say, look, I know we have a lot going on and there might be things coming, but this is what I'm working on today. Is that cool with you? Like you could do that. One person saying to appreciate it, right? Like the reason you're getting dumped on is because you're good at handling things. Like you're good at putting out fires. You can look at that also that way. Like it might be, I think you still have to set your boundaries, but I think, maybe you are the person that's good at that. And maybe you take some pride in that, as long as it's not hurting you. Yeah, that's where you draw the line. There's a book out there called How to Work for an Idiot. I've not seen that one, but sounds like a good one. There's some other books out there that I think, you guys are asking for more books. So I want to help you out with that real quick. As far as figuring out yourself, right? This is one book that I really enjoyed. It's The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. This was really good in helping to identify in myself how, like what my motivations and what made me happy. Good book. I've listened to it and read it. One of the books that when I really was making a change 3 or 4 years ago, this book right here was influential for me. I read it once at the end of the year after making significant changes. I read it again, and I've listened to it a couple of times too. It is very good at helping you understand where you put your energy and your time and how we let other people's opinions influence us. Very, very good book. Highly recommend it, especially if you're somebody that is thinking too much about what other people think about you and you're letting other people influence you too much. Very good book. I would caution you that there's nuance in this. You can't write off other people's opinions. I think you have to look at people and say, this is a person that is not a good person, not a good influence, and I need to completely disregard all of their influence, right? Or all of their opinion. Then there's other people that have their best interest in mind or your best interest in mind, but then again, just don't have good advice. And to that, I would say, you let advice go through your hand like grains of sand, and you pick out the good ones that are aligned with your values. And then there's other people that are mentors, the people that are living a life that you really want and that you should like soak up everything you can from that person. And there, again, there's nuance. There's gray area in between all these types of people. But, I think that feedback and understanding, like there's some people that you just can't give a crap about. But then there's other people that you have to kind of look like, okay, if this person is giving me this feedback, then, is there some truth to it? Can I adjust myself a little bit? This book, highly beneficial there. Now, what made me think of this book was that yesterday we went to Target. So my kids are big into reading right now. And we went to Target and just kind of walking through the book section, I found this one. Everything is effed, apparently. And it's a book about hope. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. This is going to be my next book after I finish the current one that I'm on. And it made me think of this one, one of the highly recommended influential books in my life. Let's see, Robin says, a lot of that assessment goes back to what you talked about a few weeks ago. Is that person living in the past with outdated thoughts and values? Are they present for you and the people around them? Or do they project positive vibes for the present and or future? What is their platform and how does that impact you? Robin, you read my mind. So my top note right here, if you can't read it because it's too bright, past, present, future. And that's really how I want to end this. That's it. Robin, you're reading my mind. So when you're talking about these people that are in your life, those past people, the people that are part of the old you, may have to just be left in the past. The people that are keeping you in the present, in the current situation that you might not be happy with, those are the people you have to figure out. Can they grow with you, or do they have to be left at this point in time and turn into the past? And then there's those people that are helping you grow and become the person that you really want to become. Those are the people that are going to grow with you or lift you up and help you grow, right? So in looking at people there, it's hard because there's so many, there's so much nuance in every part of life. How people behave and treat us, and do they bucket into all these different things? I mean, it just depends on, what's important to you now and how you can handle that situation. But yeah, good point. Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. So we're coming up on 1 o'clock. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, we're gonna start wrapping things up and get on to the Super Bowl. We have my brother coming over with his family, and we're excited about that. Looking forward to it. The thing, Kobe Bryant has been a topic all week, of course, just with all of it. And a couple things from that, I never followed him because I've never been a huge basketball fan. But in seeing how disciplined he was and how he was devoted to creating a life he wanted, I mean, he's inspirational. I saw an interview, a brief interview. He was talking about Michael Jordan. And one of his teammates, I guess early in his career, said, "Hey, man, I'll give you a tip on how to deal with Michael Jordan. Don't look him in the eyes." And Kobe is thinking to himself, he goes who does this guy think I am? He's like, I'm that guy. Don't look me in the eyes. There are certain, there's people that have that mentality of keeping their head down and just, kind of getting through life. And then there's those people that take on the challenge, looking at the other person in the eye saying, this is who I am. Let's go, right? Either let's go as partners, or if you want to come at me and we need to get into it, then we get into it. But I'm not going to back down from what I want out of my life. And that's an impressive mentality to have. You have to pick and choose your battles, right? You can't fight everybody. But it's an impressive attitude to have, and I think that's awesome. So in that, I've been impressed with everything I've read about him in the past week. So definitely a shame, in that situation. It's sad. And even watching Randy Moss today on SportsCenter crying about it on live TV, and it's hard because people don't want to be he didn't want to say anything live on it because he didn't want to draw attention to himself and take away from Kobe. But it's hard because people are dealing with this. And the other thing I saw today, which I found disturbing, there was a post somebody had about a female police officer that was run down as she was trying to make an arrest or something. She was run down by a car, I believe. And that is sad. I mean, obviously it's sad, and you hate to see anything like that happen, but they frame it Kobe gets millions of people and giving him attention and hours of news and everything. Why can't this person get the same? And it's relative to the number of lives that person touched. Kobe Bryant was a big name. Of course, he's going to get more attention than somebody that was. It's still a incredibly tragic thing that happened, but people die tragically every day. There's tragedy everywhere, and Kobe touched millions of lives. There are millions of people following him. He was inspirational for all of these people, and that's why he then gets all of this attention. Other people that even myself, right? I touch, the certain people around me. I'm not going to get the attention that Kobe Bryant gets, but that doesn't take anything away from what I've done in my life. That doesn't take away the impact that I've had on the few people that I've had in my life. Losing me is going to be bigger to my child than my child losing Kobe Bryant or anybody else he admires, because I'm right here with him. And that's what's important. If I were to pass away tomorrow, I don't need the world to exalt me or cry for me or be upset about me, because I had impact on this group of people, my family. my friends. So like that doesn't take away that impact. That just means that I didn't have as big a group that I impacted. And that's okay. We don't have to be resentful for other people getting more attention. That's not the point of any of this, right? So I think that, in thinking about that, like I think if we just take more time to just appreciate the smaller things, we can not get so upset about things that we don't agree with, or that we see that, like if you don't care about Kobe Bryant, you don't have to. That doesn't mean other people can't. Understanding that difference in perspective is vitally important. And in this stuff we're talking about here for work, it's the same thing. Somebody else is going to have a different point of view. And sometimes you work within it, and sometimes you get the heck out. All right. I don't see any questions popping up, so I'm going to get going. I hope everybody has a great day today. If you're watching the Super Bowl, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have your friends over, or you're going over a friend's house and you guys get together and have a good time. If you're not doing that, that's okay too. Have a good time. Enjoy your Sunday. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning for our much shorter, much earlier, much more bedhead version of Good Morning. I'll see you later. Bye.